Hey everybody, we're back with Deep Images. We're going to take a few episodes to take a look at a film that's currently in theaters. I know we don't do that very often. This is called Sinners by Ryan Coogler, starring Michael B. Jordan. To many folks' surprise, Sinners has become one of the biggest movies on earth right now. We don't usually cover movies that are currently in theaters that are mainstream. But in this case, several of us were interested in it beforehand. We decided to do a symposium, but it's not a deliberate sellout. We're mainly focusing on a roundtable discussion between myself, C.F. Roberts, and our very special guest host, Briggie Williams. She will be guiding us through this film and leading the way. And we are also going to have some other surprises along the way, some video essays from folks who were not able to make the roundtable, but have a lot to say, and other surprises too. So we hope you enjoy this Sinners Symposium, Part 1. Let's get into it.
Dark desires, breathing in fire, blaze, fueling my last days.
Hey, everybody, we're back with Deep Images, and we're bringing you yet another in depth symposium on a film that we all enjoyed. It's called Sinners by Ryan Coogler, starring Michael B. Jordan, and it's only been out a few weeks, and it's already a major hit. And to commemorate this, I'm going to let Briggie Williams officially co host for the first time, and she's going to take us through this movie, and then me and CF will throw in our 3 cents on occasion.
Okay. Well, thanks for everyone for showing up. Yes, so we're going to do Sinners today. If you haven't heard of it, I don't know where you've been or what rock you've been under. Let us know. We'll get you out from under that rock because this movie is really taken off. There have been many things said about this movie on the internet, in Variety, different news outlets. It's beautifully done, stunning movie. Directed by Ryan Coogler, who did Black Panther, directed Fruitvale Station. So many great movies. Please go and check out his other movies if you haven't seen them, but they're all extremely intriguing, well done, well executed. But today we're here for Sinners, and I'm going to give you a brief overview, and Henry and I and Chuck, we're going to just talk about it a little bit and see if we can't stir up a little controversy in the meantime, because it has a lot of ups and downs. People love it, some people didn't love it, but it is basically a vampire movie set in the Deep South during Jim Crow slavery. And that in and of itself should be intriguing enough for people to want to explore what could this look like? What would it look like if there were vampires who we all know have existed almost forever throughout time for hundreds of years? So why wouldn't they be there? That's sort of my question. Why wouldn't they be there? How
You
did
mean
they
you
get
you
there?
introduce a vampire character into a story like this, and you really have no idea how long they've been walking the earth, how many times they've died and come back to life, what they've been through, how many countries they've lived in.
Sure, sure, sure,
Um,
sure, sure. And how is it that these particular vampires got to where they are? So the movie starts out with two brothers played by Michael B. Jordan. One is called Smoke, the other one is named Stack. They show up, they come back home after fighting in World War One. Just a little backstory about these two twins, who he plays both of these parts brilliantly, by the way. And they fought in World War One. So they're, I guess, battle tested, but still living in segregation. They decide they're going to go to Chicago. The lore for them is that they worked for Al Capone, and while working for Al Capone and the mob, as Al Capone actually was being taken down for, what was it, tax evasion of all things, true story. Um, they decided to rob them, and they robbed them and then went back home to Mississippi
it was like
and
a
to open up a
gold
new,
mine. You don't
yeah,
even know how much they robbed them until the end of the movie. Remember?
yeah, that's true too, yeah,
There's things
yeah,
they didn't show that they had. Like, damn.
right. Right. So they wanted to open up a Jew joint. And, you know, see if they could get something going, in their neck of the woods, something that would be theirs. And they met with someone, decided to buy the land and all this acreage, not knowing. Well, they did know, of course, that this person was with the KKK, and the two of them embark on opening up the juke joint that night. So they went and saw old friends. They went and spoke with people that they knew at the time. They didn't know they were back in town, and people were pretty happy to see them. Two people who were very happy to see them. One was named Annie, the other one was named Mary. Annie was the love interest of Smoke, who was one of the twins. And Smoke, if you don't know, was the person dressed in blue. Michael uh, B. Jordan was playing, and Stack was dressed in red, who was the love interest of Mary. And as the film progressed, you begin to understand how these characters are developed, that they were, so it's sort of you're entering into it as an ongoing story, and they're just giving you glimpses into their lives before they left. Now they've come back. Who are they? Why are they here? Who
Well,
are they supposed to be running from? Because they are running from
they are,
someone.
but I think what they did there is the key. The key to the whole movie
Mhm.
is they latch on to the other character, and that becomes their way to sell the juke joint and everything else. They kind of use him. I don't mean in a bad way, but
Yeah.
can you talk about that, Sammy?
Oh, well, Sammy was the cousin, was their cousin, who was a very talented musician. His father, who was a pastor in the church at that time, of course, the Black church was um, very instrumental in creating a community of people who had no choice but to stick together based on the times that they were living in, which was Jim Crow slavery. This was during the 1930s, so they were still dealing with that particular evil. So they were all together, but the father was like, "Look, I don't want you playing this music." Speaking to his son Sammy, it was like, "This music is evil. This music is going to be nothing but trouble." But that music was in his blood, and later on, you find out why the father was saying it. But I have my opinions about that. I won't get into
Yeah,
it.
I do
But
too, actually.
yeah, but he had music in his blood. His father wanted him to stay in the church and not be a part of this musical journey
I,
he wanted to be on.
I feel like that's the first little indication you have where there's this kind of tug of war between the carnal, the corporeal, the flesh, and the spirit, and that's kind of a more obvious one, but they
Mhm.
go there in a lot of other ways as the movie goes on, I think.
Completely, completely. But against his father's wishes, he goes out. He goes out with Stack. He goes to the train station. He picks up a couple of other people who play that he knows. Delroy Lindo plays, I forget the character that he plays.
Delta Slim.
Right. So he picks him up. He plays the blues harp. He also plays guitar and piano and some other instruments. And so they all get in the back of Stack's car, head over to the juke joint. But also, I believe uh, Smoke also goes to into the town to get a sign made, and he meets up with people at the general store in town. He gets signs made. He pays some people to create some signs for him. I believe they're Japanese people. I think they're
It's good.
Korean.
They're
Or they,
Chinese. Well,
oh,
the
I'm
Chinese.
act
sorry. I'm
the
sorry. They're
actors
Chinese.
the actors are both Chinese. I don't remember if they say
Chinese.
where the
Yeah.
characters are from.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah, they're
Okay.
Chinese. I mean, yes. And so they have a general store. That's something else we're going to talk about
That was the
eventually.
trip. Yeah.
Man.
And they go to help them put together the juke joint that they want to open that night. There's a window of opportunity, and they want to seize on that
Oh yeah.
window of opportunity that night. So it had to happen, all happen that night. Well, Smoke decides to go, and he goes to find his love interest that he left behind. Turns out that they had a child together. It's very emotional. Their relationship is a lot more grounded than the relationship that Smoke has with Annie. I mean, Smoke has with sorry, Stack has
Mary.
with Mary. But they do make their acquaintance again. They rejoin. Turns out that they had a little one that passed,
They were married.
and
I
they
don't,
were.
I guess they were separated.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think they're husband
I
and
think
wife.
they were right. They were husband and wife.
She hadn't
So
seen him in a while.
yeah, so all of these things culminate into really beautiful character building. I would say a large
Yeah.
part of that first part of the movie, I think Coogler really centers these characters, gives those characters meaning, make you care about these characters, so that whatever befalls them later, you're completely invested. He
Yeah.
allows those characters to develop and to give shape and form and depth to all of those characters in a way that isn't rushed and very unhurried, but there's also a simmering danger that's lurking beneath the surface. Not just because these vampires are there, but because living in the Jim Crow South, in and of itself, there was always lurking danger. So there were
Mm.
these two things that these people were dealing with. One was the known and one was the unknown. But I
Mm.
will say that Annie held true to her ancestral roots. And because
Hmm.
she did, that certainly facilitated in their or helped facilitate in what would happen later on in the movie, which
How would you
you
describe
know.
Annie, like her deal with the root? A
I mean,
mystic? I mean, she has a thing that she does the process. I forgot what she calls it. It's a cool phrase, like
mhm,
working the root or something. But
She's basically a root woman.
yeah, and
Yeah. Kind
those
of
are
the
focused.
town root woman.
Yeah, and that's the focus of her energy, and so she kind of like prays or get like invest psychic energy in all those
mhm,
plants and herbs and stuff. Is that how does that sound
mhm.
accurate?
Yeah, it's
Oh,
it's
you're
basically
asking.
voodoo.
She sounds kind of like a witch,
Yeah,
basically.
it's
Nowadays, she'd be a witch.
it's a strain of voodoo.
Yeah.
Right. So she was doing what most likely would be like Yoruba rituals, which their ancestral rituals um, that would have been held over from the time of Black people and our enslavement, that she would still have held on to those things and that had been passed down to her.
Hmm.
And that's why you have to me, the duality of the church and then having her there that still held true and fast to those ancestral teachings that were basically, we were told, had no merit, no power, and no reason to even be a part of who we are today. Now that we're in this country, we should just let all that go and forget that. She did not do that. So she held very true and fast to those things. And even though Smoke had his issues with it, he still did hold that, that the bag with all of the magical powers that he given him, I'm sorry, when he left, he still carried it around his neck to protect him.
Hmm.
And he understood that the reason why she was doing that was certainly to hold on to the old ways. And he did respect that, he certainly did. But they did have their differences. I'll put it that way,
Hmm.
And they
including down.
reconcile.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I would say they did reconcile. At some points, they
No, I
certainly
like the way
did.
they reconcile.
They did reconcile. Yeah. Well,
Something you don't see
sometimes.
a lot in movies anymore.
That's some intense
Hollywood
reconcile.
movie. Yeah, Hollywood
Oh, you
movies
mean
don't show
that?
too much. They're all afraid. They're all willing to show gore and violence, but they're terrified of sex.
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, that's
This movie is
again.
not terrified of sex whatsoever.
No, this is another. Just a little segue. There was a time a lot during I would say the 1970s. There were a lot of movies that came out where there was an all black cast, and a lot of those movies were very earthy, sexually so,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't like
Funky.
these horrible rape scenes.
All right.
It was very earthy, very sensual, lovemaking between black people. And this movie, the sex scenes in this movie between the black people, it certainly did have that. It harkened to that.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, it did sort of harken to that. So yeah, they certainly did come together because sometimes when it's really good, you could be away for 2 years, 3 years, and it's like, oh, we're right back where we started. It's
Hmm.
it's easy to get back there
I
once
keep
you know
hearing in
how.
my head, I keep hearing in my head that song on the Black Shampoo soundtrack.
What's
When
that?
they get
Who's
together,
that?
they get together in the shower. Can you feel the love? I hear that whenever a scene like that, because I hear, or the Curtis
I,
Mayfield one, "Give me your love," and they're in a bathtub. So there's something with water that makes them feel love.
oh, is this a movie
Yeah,
or current book?
Superfly and Black Shampoo.
Oh yes. Oh, like yes,
Black
yes, yes,
Shampoo is more like raunchy, but they're in the shower. So
yes.
Black Shampoo is a wonderful soundtrack, but it's kind of a
Mhm.
knockoff of the Curtis Mayfield, Billy Hutch people. Like
Yeah.
until YouTube, you couldn't find Gerald Lee's soundtrack. Now you can. It's incredible. And when they're in the shower having sex, you give Shiki say, "You feel the love," you know. And so whenever I see this like really intense scene between two black people, I just hear that in my head. It's just so it's so of its time and like I don't know. It's not cheesy to me. Some people it's cheesy and fun. It is kind of funny, but it's
hmm I think it's only funny because we don't see enough of it, regardless of what the race is. We don't see that level of tenderness, kindness giving. We don't see
Yeah.
that. You see a lot of sexual aggression, and
Yeah.
not even real passion. It's either violent aggression or metaphors for violent aggression, you
Mm.
know, in certain ways. So anyway, they decide to open this juke joint. We're just going to fast forward. And, night falls. Everything is looking good. Everyone is there. The people from the town have come. Some people can't afford to pay with real money, so they're giving this, I would say, sharecropper money. There's money that blacks were given that were sharecroppers, which was basically still slavery, backdoor slavery, that you could only spend and buy things with this money on the plantation. It wasn't even real money, it was like monopoly money, more or
mm,
less. And it had no intrinsic value outside of that plantation, which is the money that Annie would take when people would come for her services.
mhm.
And Smoke had a lot of issues with that because he said, "Look, why are you even taking this money? This money is worthless." And she said, "Well, to these people, this is all they have. So I'm going to take this. So I'm serving this community of people, and this is all they have, and so I'm going to take it." And so, like again, she was still holding true to help them, even though this money had no value outside of that plantation. And that's how many black people were paid.
I think she
So,
was also rejecting her husband's way of getting money.
right,
Because she said,
because
there's blood attached to it.
right, yeah, and there was blood attached to both of that, but certainly, she was certainly rejecting that money as well. Outside of the fact that that money could actually truly free people, free them, however you got that money, the money is stolen regardless.
Right.
You know, the how the money was made was by stolen people, and you were one of those stolen people by which that money was made. So why are you complaining about how the money was gotten? Does that make sense? So
Mm.
that's just sort of
Yeah,
my.
I think the
Mhm,
brothers had a uh I don't know, they're not as philosophical or wise as Annie, but I do think they had
mhm.
this kind of this vibe, which is like we're gonna take our gains, ill-gotten or not, and we're gonna be free. And that's really
Right.
the bottom
Yeah.
line on almost any strong black cinema movie that I watch is this that deals with the effects of the diaspora, which is just about
Mhm,
all of them.
mhm,
The
mhm, mhm.
diaspora fucked up the world, and
Yeah,
so
yeah.
really freedom, real freedom, and there's like
Mhm,
levels. It's like you're not a slave, but you're
mhm.
still a slave this way. So
Right.
yeah,
Right. So you can pick your poison, but how did those people get their money? So it's not a matter of wanting, those people wanted to be free too. That's why they turned into gangsters. They were trapped in a system they didn't want to be in. So they said, we're gonna rob banks and sell booze and do what we need to do. And those brothers represented Black people getting free the way that they wanted to get free. So everybody is going to do what they need to do, and that's what they chose to do.
hmm
They were good at what they did. Like I said, they were in the war. They understood combat, and they understood how to survive. And they had to be rough, also, just being Black and being in that situation. there's nowhere they can hide. So they went back home, assimilated back into their town, brought money and booze with them, Irish booze, I understand, and decided that they were going to start a business. And that's what they set out to do. Um, but I want to talk a little bit about the relationship between um, Stack and Mary, right? And how that played into um, the larger picture of the movie, whereas she was supposed to be like a quarter of a quarter of a quarter black, and so that was her,
She's an eighth. She was an eighth. One eighth.
whatever, in an eighth. I mean, it's
Mhm.
sorry, it's interesting, but anyway,
She said my mother's daddy was half black, so it means her
right,
mom's a quarter black, and
right,
eighth.
and then she's an eighth of
She
that.
looks a white actress, so
Yeah. But she's also claiming in real life to be, which is like, okay. So anyway, she's also claiming in real life because it's why, well, why wouldn't you? You know what I mean? So, so that kind of gives her permission to be a part of this juke joint, which uh Stack tells her, listen, you can't be around here. This isn't cool. It's not
yeah.
safe. I think it's going to be dangerous. You shouldn't be here. But she winds up hanging out, and she winds up, being a part of, festivities of that night. And and the music. Let's just jump to that for a second. That Sammy begins to play, which is one of the most beautiful cinematic representations, I feel, of.
That was one of my favorite things in this.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah, I thought that was extremely, extremely unexpected,
Mm-hmm.
unexpected, breathtaking. But when I saw what was happening and unfolding,
Yeah.
I was just like, this is tremendous, tremendous,
What would you
visually
describe?
stunning.
What would you describe happened
Mhm.
and your feelings about it?
Oh, okay. So,
What
right,
they
of course.
depict? Yeah.
For some of those, so those of us who haven't seen it, who are still under that rock. So as Sammy, Sammy is playing blues and begins to really lay into the strings, really begins to lay into all the different, the vibe and the energy of the juke joint. He begins to conjure the spirits of ancestors
And
who have
descendants.
gone, yeah, who have gone, and those who have yet to become, and using all of the many ways of Black music and our artists to represent how far back from the African witch doctors um, to the tribal dances of ancestral um, Black ancestors, up to um, Will's goodness, like the funkadelic, right? Like
Oh,
that was
oh yeah.
extremely,
Yeah, it was
you
like
know,
Eddie Hazel and
That's
stuff.
we could like, yeah.
right,
Because
Bougie.
we're gonna win the argument that black people invented metal. People tell me they didn't. Go to hell.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
No, it's okay. No, I understand. It's fine. I'm with you. I'm with you. But it's
So when they
okay.
show that guy, it's like okay,
Where
but
do you think that came from?
Mm.
well, I
No,
think
I'm not asking you. I'm saying in general. I'm saying to those people. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Where did
no,
where did that come from? I
no,
mean, they had country, they had all of the genres of music born out of all of this oppression. And for
yeah,
those people who can't quite connect those dots, that's what this is. And if people have a problem with that, that's because because we're in your shadow and you need to go do some shadow work. Carl Jung is calling. Like you need to do some shadow work because that's just really what it is. Up to the turntable scratching to break dancing
Reggae.
to
Yeah.
reggae to soca to hip hop, bebop, jazz, blues, funk, rock and roll, just every genre of music. That just blew me
Yeah, just
away.
Yeah.
blended together beautifully.
Right. And then then they had um the Irish doing the Irish jig, then that was in there. That
Yeah.
was absolutely beautiful. And then they had the Chinese, dancers. I thought that was
Oh
absolutely
yeah, they
because
did have a little
all of
Chinese part. Yeah.
right, because that was all a part of that wasn't part of who we are, but those people were truly there and they were really there historically.
Yes.
The Irish were there and the
I don't know
Chinese
if
were
they
there.
own stores though. I don't know if Chinese own stores.
Well, we're going to talk about
It's a cool store idea.
that.
I'm
No, we're going to talk about that. Yes,
I,
they did. We're gonna get into it.
I,
So all of that there was part of the music, and but that also raised I would say the hunger of um, Remick, who was the head vampire, and he heard this music. He felt the energy. He felt those ancestors, and there was something that was about that just drew him in. And then he was like, "Oh, yeah, we need to feast off of these people." Because once he did bite into someone and turned them, he then took on all of that energy, took on all their memories, took on all
yeah,
of
that
their
was
power.
wild. Yeah,
Yeah, and so
Yeah, I
he
like the
wanted to.
way
that was kind of new.
mythically the way they kind of constructed the vampire's entire universe or entire I don't know if I want to say belief system or culture,
Mhm.
but just
Lore.
the idea that they all kind of became a hive mind.
Yeah, they did become, but it all starts with Remick because Remick is like patient
Yeah.
zero. Because we meet
Yeah.
him, he's alone, and the sun is burning him to death. But
Mhm.
people encountering him have no idea that's what happened. But we're going,
Right, right, right. And even though now here's the part that was really deep for me. There were the Native Americans that were there that were chasing him.
yes,
Right? They were chasing him at one point before he got to the juke joint. They were chasing him because they knew what he was.
yes,
Again, I truly believe in my heart of hearts that the Native Americans knew, the indigenous people knew what he was the same way Annie knew what he was because
Mhm.
they had held true to their guides
hmm
and to
Yeah.
their spirituality. They
hmm
were not indoctrinated into Catholicism or into Christianity the way
Yeah.
the blacks in the church were,
hmm
right? And then they were told, well, no, these things that you want to do, these deities you want to worship, they're evil, it's dark magic, there's no power in it. But here we're going to substitute um, what you know with what we want you to know.
Yeah.
And so Annie was like, I don't care about that. I know what I need to stay focused on. And I believe that those indigenous people understood the same thing.
Oh yeah,
So
Yeah.
once the sun started,
As
go
a
ahead.
slight oh, I'm sorry. As a slight aside to that, man, I
Mhm.
know I've gone off on issues like this in other symposiums, but yeah, the Choctaw Vampire Hunters. I want to see their movie.
yeah. They could
That
have
would be
ended this
cool.
whole thing.
Yeah, yeah, in 5 seconds,
They
but
had
I
patient
don't know.
zero, and they couldn't get to
But
it because
whatever.
the
If we
wife.
do that, then we
Right,
haven't got a movie.
And the
You know.
husband
right,
and
right,
wife
right, right.
are I wasn't sure the first time I saw it. Maybe I didn't hear the dialogue right, but I think the
Mhm,
husband was like a part-time Klansman.
They were
mhm.
clan, yeah.
I knew they were
Right,
both
right.
racist, but
Yeah, you're not part-time clansman. That's like not a
in
thing.
other words, I think they were living in their own little house out in the frontier,
Right,
frontier
right,
of
right, right.
Mississippi, and then they probably go into town and hang with the wizards, all that stuff.
Yeah, it was definitely. Yeah, but
We're
like
off to see the wizard.
rock wizards. I love it so much. What I found interesting about that little interaction, again, something that it's a perspective, it's a real perspective we are all living, say we are all friends, we're all living here together, but because of who you are and who I am, there are things that I can't see that you can see,
Mhm.
and vice versa. Only because I'm a woman, you're men, I'm black, you're white, and
Mhm.
we all have our individual experiences, which the word is completely overused these days, my lived experience. But anyway,
Dead.
but anyway, the point I want to get to with that was when the Indians, when the Choctaws came and said, knocked on the door and told the husband and the wife, look, there's somebody here, don't let them in. Don't let them in. It's going to be dangerous.
And see, that's where
Well,
you begin the vampire lore. All the vampire lore in this movie is pretty, pretty adhering into like the traditional. They don't really
yes,
divert, except the hive mind. That was kind of a new idea. But it's like,
yes.
why can't they get in? It's because vampires have to be invited in, or they
Hmm.
cannot come in. Like it's like a force field.
Hmm. Hmm. And I love that. I love that they
Yeah,
stay true to that. But it spoke to a larger fear, a larger understanding or knowing that those people were racist. And those people said, well, this guy is white and we're white, so we're all on the same team. And
right.
right. But your racism got you killed because those Choctaw were coming to help you, to warn you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like danger is here and we're here to help you.
You
Right?
know, he
Those
didn't just Remick didn't just turn them because he took advantage of those things. Well, that's initially. But once
mhm.
the three of them band together a little later, they have bonded over music, just like
Yes.
the other character. I mean, that was kind of unexpected for me.
Hmm. Well, that music that they were bonding over and around. Understand, like so, Remick is dark. Remick has to find a way to get Sammy or to get into the juke joint. So, what is he going to use as his weapon of choice? He's going
Yeah.
to use music, and he's going to seduce them with the thing that you love the most, which is how people get close to you.
Yeah.
That's how
Yeah.
people destroy you,
Mhm.
right? Okay, so if I
Mhm.
wanted to destroy you, I'd find out what you were into, and then I would say I love it. Then you think I love it. Oh, she loves it too. And I'm going to then put my defenses down. And
Yeah.
that's what that music was meant to do. The only difference was it wasn't the right kinds of music. You see what I mean? It wasn't the
Yeah.
right kind. It wasn't the kind of music that was moving them enough to say, "Come on in."
Oh, I
Now,
get you. I get you. Yeah.
you
Right.
see what I mean? But here's the deeper subtext to that
Yeah.
on as it relates to Black people, because I'm just gonna kind of go all in as it relates to Black people. The downfall of Black people is that if any other race does what Black people can do, Black people are like, "Woo, come on in." So if that white woman or that man was singing like I don't know. I don't know. Luther Vandross. I'm just going to say a name or somebody that had a beautiful voice or some that sounded black. Black people are very enamored with white people who can do things that they can do, but they're white. Do you see where I'm going with that?
Yeah.
Does
Yeah,
that
I
make
do. I
sense to
do.
you?
But what is the what's the end game to that? They let the
Right.
white
The
people
end
in,
game.
and then what happens?
But what I'm saying to that is that if those three people were able to somehow sound, they were playing blues. So in this sense, that would have been the seduction point to get through the door.
Hmm.
But because they couldn't quite master that at that time, which is what Remick wanted, that's what he wanted, right? So to get that, he was going to get all of the ancestral power, energy,
Wow, I
and
didn't get
everything
that.
that came.
That's awesome.
Yes, yes,
I
that's what.
kind of,
Yes.
yeah, I kind of touched on it near the end, but I still, wow,
Mhm.
okay,
Right. That's why he was trying to use music to seduce his way in and say, hey, you know what? We could all sit down together and we could, and they were like, not, and understanding too that there is danger by associating. As much as you might want to be friends, we understand how many towns have been burnt down and it historically burnt down because a white person entered into black spaces and then said this one thing happened and then your whole town is burnt down. So there's a
yeah,
level of danger and suspicion
yeah,
why those people, why they didn't want that. So it just
yeah.
really plays
Mhm.
on the vampire trope, but it also plays on the real historical, factual,
Mhm.
events that have happened in the history of America. The other thing that was really interesting was how when Mary decided she was going to go and help, and go talk to these people who are vampires. She
She's
doesn't
gonna go
even
spy
know.
on them.
Right. She's like, look, they have money. You need money. I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna
She looks
find out
white. Yeah.
what's going on. No, she is white,
Mhm.
and she's going out there, and that's another layer. That is
Oh
the
yeah.
white savior complex. See what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
I'm gonna go and do what,
Wow.
and then she brings down the entire. And how many times have white women gone into black spaces and the whole show comes down? That's
Yeah.
who she
Well,
was.
that's why they all kind of bristle when she appears in the movie the first few times.
Yes,
Is that's a
yes,
signal to the black man that I could die any second because of this woman if I
right,
look at her.
right,
You know,
right,
and I
right.
think it did it
Yes,
really
because it has
well.
happened.
And the other thing
Yeah.
about her being
Mhm.
white, oh, I forgot what I was going to say. Okay, go ahead.
It's like a whole club full of Emmett Tills.
Yeah, yeah, and the
But yes.
Remick. You think about Remick is with
Mhm,
the beauty of his
Hell, I
character.
don't know, like Tulsa.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
mhm,
right,
mhm,
exactly. Um, I feel like I thought he was just kind of like a straggly old vampire, kind of a redneck like some of the other characters. But then as you go on, you realize that he does have these schemes you're talking about, and they make him more powerful. I mean, it's a bit much toward the end, I'll say. I would like, okay, I'll say, when is this guy going to feel any pain at all, ever? It's like he was
mhm,
absolutely invincible by the end of the movie.
mhm,
Do you think
mhm.
it's
Yeah,
because
he
he
was
got everybody's life
invincible.
essence and experiences?
Yes, but understand though, he went and he bit all of the people who were at the juke joint. He got all of them together, but also the people he had already had bitten prior to getting there. Um, so yes, he bit, he bit everyone. So he had them there, and then eventually used that power to to try to seduce the other people that were already inside of that were still alive in the juke joint. Again, if it wasn't for Annie knowing what she knew, she told them to eat the garlic because they needed to know who was really, are you a vampire? Who's really here? She threw holy water on one of them and burnt their face up. I don't even she understood what was going on. She was the one who said, "Listen, remember when what was his name? Cornbread
Yeah,
wanted to
Yeah.
come in, but he was already bitten." And she
Yeah.
was like, "Don't let him in. Why
he
can't he
kept
just
trying to
walk
trick
over
him to
here?"
get back in.
Right, exactly, exactly. And then of course, again, using soft voice seduction, familiarity. Hey, we're friends. Like, what's going on? Why don't you just invite
Do
me
you
in?
do you feel like
That's a
Cornbread would like be representing? Okay, so the black people have bonded with the white people who like the same things as them. So he goes over there, and so then he comes back to where he's from, and he's trying to get more black people together. And that's he's like an emissary. And the character was really kind of a dull guy before he got turned into a vampire. But then once
Yeah.
he absorbed that other mindset, then he's pretty sneaky. He's like, "Come on, let me in." But
Mhm,
some of the
mhm.
characters have an instinct that he ain't the cornbread they used to know.
Right.
Yeah.
His mannerisms had changed quite a bit,
Hmm.
They've become
right,
very
Chuck?
predatory. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then once they're found out, that's when the real, that's when you really saw who you were dealing with. When they,
Yeah.
when and then also the other scene where Stack gets bitten and is turned as well, which was quite shocking because in these movies you expect the heroes to you know what I mean. So
Well, you got
Coogler is not sparing anyone.
you have tell who bit him though. That's the thing. That's how it
Right, right,
works. That's the only
right.
person
Yes,
who could
yes,
have gotten close to him.
right. Again, the only person who could have gotten close to him was
Mary.
Mary,
Yeah.
and so Mary seduced him and wound up, biting him and turning him into. into a vampire. So
Yeah.
that was a very interesting, and it was because of her that the entire place, more or
Of
less,
course.
it was because of her, but it was also the carelessness because it can't just all be on one person. I think it was the carelessness of of um of Smoke.
Yeah, I
Um,
think Annie was like the person who was the most, aware. And then
right,
it took a while though for her to convince everybody.
right, right.
Yeah.
Yes, it took a while for sure. It kind of also had a little bit. It reminded me somewhat of like the what is it called? The Thing.
Yeah, it's like a
Yeah.
siege movie, and
Yeah.
you don't know who you can
Yeah.
trust or who's going to turn.
Right,
Yeah.
right. You didn't know who you could trust, but at the same time, you didn't know whether or not somebody who was were they bit, were they not bit? For a time, we didn't know. They
Hmm.
thought one person was bit, but they just fell asleep and they put him out there, and then he did get bit. That one character, and then he was turned also.
Mm.
But then they
Then
made a mistake though. They tried to do a test like the thing, have him eat
mhm,
garlic in a round
mhm.
table.
Right,
And
right, right,
they're
right,
trying to
right.
make you think Perline, who's the young lady that Sammy likes, uh,
Hmm.
is the vampire. So they're doing
Hmm.
the red herring thing. But once they got to
Hmm.
her and she's starting to choke
Hmm.
on it or whatever, I'm like, okay, she's a red herring. She's gonna
Hmm.
be okay.
Hmm.
So who was the vampire in
Yeah.
that line? I forgot.
No, none of them
None of
were.
them were in that
No,
at that
none of
point.
them
Okay.
were. Mm-mm. No, I mean, but Carlene, she also represented like the sassy, the sapphire, you know what I mean, that set sort of trope that Black women were portrayed in those movies as well. That's why she came across that way. And if you look at the whole thing, they were all sinners. They were all doing things like she was married, but you never saw her husband.
No.
So she was married, right?
Mhm.
Um,
And she was really
certainly.
into the music. I mean, in a way, Sammy seduced her. I think he
Mhm,
seduced everybody, but once she got
mhm.
on stage while he's playing, she got really the bump and grind, everything all out.
She got loose.
Yeah.
She certainly did get loose. And then they were in a juke joint, which is supposed to be, again, like one of the sins. And so it was sort of multi-layered if you looked at it that way. It just had a lot of different layers to it. Um, and then the fight scene, which I thought was really, really good between the two brothers. Um, and just the complete shock from oh my gosh, which brother? Which from Smoke? Right, the shock of Smoke when he was fighting his brother and how all that turned out. Everyone eventually, did wind up getting, sorry to say this bit, um, except for one person. And that was Sammy who basically made it
Sammy
out.
and Sammy and uh Smoke, they're the only ones who survived.
Smoke for a little while.
No, Smoke for a little while, right?
Oh,
Yes, certainly.
Was Smoke bit near the final battle?
No,
No.
no,
Oh.
no, no.
He died
Um,
another way.
Yeah.
Smoke, yeah, he did. He died. He got shot. But
Right.
that wasn't until later on.
Yeah.
All of the vampires did eventually. They did see literally the light of day and were completely turned into ash. And so that's how they wound up, but not before Sammy took his guitar and went upside Remington's head with it, which I thought was pretty interesting because then the entire hive felt that pain,
I think
and
that the
then
reason it worked, it goes back to the stories we were
mhm.
talking about, the Silver John with the
Yeah,
guitar with the
Yeah.
silver strings that can ward against the called
yes,
his thing had it was a
yeah,
resonator guitar. So the sound
hmm,
through that metal, that silver thing rather than a box hole in the top. So
yeah,
when he hit him with the silver resonator thing, it knocked the hell out of him.
right, 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 right. And I also want to say there was like some elements. Well, I'll save that for after we wrap up a little bit more how things concluded. So once that happens, we then fast forward. Oh no, after that happens, then that's when the Klan comes back. The Klan
Yeah.
comes. They decide they're going to take down the juke joint. They go there. They see no one. They're like, "What's going on here?" They have no clue what's happening here. But then that there is Smoke is there, and they had like a what is it like a big well, to me it looked almost like a coffin. It was this
Yeah,
huge.
it was
Yeah.
almost like Django. Take the gun out of the car.
Yeah.
It was like a huge cache of weapons.
Yeah, of weapons that they brought
I
from
didn't know they
Chicago.
had all that. Still,
Just military grade, death machines.
other stuff they had
Hmm.
stolen before they came in.
Hmm. Right. And so he just basically, and plus they were snipers,
Mhm.
Mm.
as you
And
could tell, because the way he was able to just take them all out,
yeah,
like, take them out. The brothers were also snipers because they had military training. So they just, so um, Smoke just went and, turned them all into Swiss cheese, basically. And then they also had like well, I guess that would have been that'd be like a Tommy gun that he had, or would that just be
mhm.
Yeah.
is that a Tommy gun he had? Yeah, that just completely tore through the sort of the head clan guy. And
He's
he
still
did
going.
get shot.
Yeah,
Right. He did get shot. Smoke did get shot. And then he took off the juju bag. He took it off. And at that time, if you notice, when he took it off was when he did get shot. Prior to that, he was protected. He
Mhm.
took it off and was bleeding out. And then the Klansman offers him. Did he offer him money? I
Yeah. He
forgot.
was
He
talking a
said,
bunch of shit. There,
right. He offered him
I mean,
money.
there was no way that guy, as fat and out of shape he was after being shot like 10 times, there was no way he was going to get out of there no matter what kind of deal he struck.
Hmm.
I mean, he was
Hmm.
just
Mm.
desperate.
Yeah, he was pretty desperate, definitely. I'd say last gasp for sure. But then the other part of the movie that really just, took my breath away too was then once um Smoke saw Annie
Yeah.
after he knew, but he remember he had promised her.
Yeah.
She had made him promise that if she got bit, that he would kill her
Yeah, he staked her.
before, right before she became part of the hive mind, the
Hmm.
vampire hive mind, and he did certainly do that. But then he did see her as he was dying. He did see her
He saw
and
her
see
child.
and her child, their child together, which I thought was just like,
Yeah, it
I
was,
like she looked absolutely beautiful. I thought
oh,
that
yeah.
was like so. I thought it was like so beautiful. The cinematography was so
Yeah.
amazing. And then the next scene. Well, we're thinking it's the end of the movie, but then the next scene, we're in.
Oof.
The
Where are
last
we?
survivor is Aunt Sammy.
It's Sammy. He goes back to the church, but not before Remick uh, scars his face.
Yeah,
He had these long nails,
right.
and I want to certainly talk about that also, where he like sort of scratches them across the face. He goes to see his father, in the church, and he's there with this broken guitar, and just the neck of the guitar, and he's still holding it. And then he decides, you know what, I'm not gonna stay here. I'm gonna go and do my thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's a lot of, and then to know, and then you see him playing years later. He's an old man. He's in his 80s,
60
and
years later.
yeah, and it's like Buddy Guy of all people.
Yeah.
Like that was just so. I was just like, oh, this is it. This
Yeah, it
is
was very
it.
good.
Super amazing, cool, just iconic blues man from a time that we'll never know, but he carries again all of that real history with him, the ancestral
Yeah.
history of the blues from a time where Jim Crow was a real thing that he had to live through and navigate. And they used him as that representation of Sammy in the present day. And he named
Yeah.
his club Pearline, and I thought that was absolutely beautiful. Um, and then who shows up, right? Someone comes in and says somebody wants to see you to Sammy, who's Buddy Guy, and who shows up? So this has to be like 80s,
It was
right? 80s,
1992.
92.
It
Okay,
says it. Yeah, it says
92.
60 years
90,
after.
right. So and imagine how 60 years just goes by, right? It's crazy. Um, and there he is. They're wearing flat tops. I'm sorry.
Oh,
They
they look
have on
like
like
some really bad hip hop fashion.
yeah, I thought that was actually very interesting. I mean, unless you were there, I guess it's hard to imagine, but that's if you go back and look at Kid and Play, I guess you can go and see what they look like, what they
The
were
thing
dressed
I
like.
didn't know that I didn't know how. So we find out the smoke spared Stack off camera.
Hmm.
Uh, and I guess he. But what about Mary? I thought Mary. I thought somebody killed Mary. Maybe I was wrong.
No, they obviously they ran off. They ran off together.
And they stayed together
So
for 60 years, and they kept up with the fashions.
and they, but well, they had to. I mean, they're vampires.
Yeah,
So
they've got to
he did
assimilate.
offer.
Yeah,
Right. They did offer to still turn Sammy. They said, look, we could still do this. I mean, he did honor his promise to his brother not to bite him and not to come for him and let him live in peace.
it was tense
So
though. I thought they were going to kill him. I didn't trust them.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, they went off to live their lives after they left and and then if you stay and watch to the very, very, very end, then there's a beautiful um, musical experience. I won't give that part away, but
Ooh,
waiting because I thought
yeah.
was
The
just
copy that I saw, I don't know if it was on
so
there or
good.
not.
Mhm.
It wasn't.
No, it was just
Oh,
you just saw the poster for the movie, but you got to hear the music, and the music
mhm.
just
Yeah.
kills.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, 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 definitely. So that's kind of yeah, I'm going to say, believe it or not, that's the executive summary. If you can believe that's the executive summary of this phenomenal movie that had so many layers to it, historical layers to it. And what I really loved about it is that if people really want to take the time to learn about it, you're going to learn about the history of the country that wasn't that long ago. So when people say, "Oh, that was 100 years, it was 200, that was 400 years ago," it wasn't because if you
No.
have grandparents or even your parents that are still alive, they were born in Jim Crow slavery. They were born in
Yeah.
Jim Crow slavery. And if you have anyone that was born 1960, 64, 65. That's the first generation born out of Jim Crow slavery.
Right.
And those people are still here today.
That's because Gen X is
So,
the greatest generation.
well,
Everyone.
Gen X is on, okay. So, Gen X,
Sorry.
okay. So, Gen X is the first generation, whether you're black or white or Asian or whatever, if you were born in America, you're the first generation born out of Jim Crow slavery.
The civil rights
So,
was
when
passed in '64. So
right. So they were still lynching people, and they were lynching them well after the 1964.
oh yeah.
Mhm.
Right. So this is not ancient history just because they keep showing the photographs of civil rights leaders and lynchings in black and white. There was color. They just keep showing it in black and white to make you feel as though it's a long time ago, right? I mean, if you really think about it, most
Yeah.
of the photos that you see of civil rights leaders, of marches, of people struggling for equality as it relates to um, like the Black Panthers and that struggle, there was black, there was color there. They just shoot it in black and white. It's a mind fuck to make you think that
I
that
never
was
thought
so
about that. That's
long
pretty
ago.
well.
But do you see where I'm
Yeah,
going
you
with
kind of
that?
makes you
Yeah.
distant from it
That black and white distances you.
because
The black,
they're trying to make you believe now. Uh, certain folk run the
That
show.
we've gotten beyond that.
Yeah,
right,
they want you to believe that it's over, it's done. Give up.
right,
You lost
right,
the fight. This is
right, right. And it's not something. It's not in our heads, and it's not wanting to be a victim because the last thing in the world I would want, I would actually, what I would like to do is just be assimilate like everybody else gets to assimilate. You know what I mean? But that's not happening, and until it happens. we're going to continue to stand on business in terms of people having human rights. That's just not Black people. That's just people who are being oppressed,
Absolutely.
by a system that feels, that they want to just soak every bit of humanity out of someone.
Okay, that was Center Symposium Part 1. And we have much more coming, a handful of episodes where we're going to continue showing you our roundtable discussion. But we're also going to be cutting in some video essays from some folks who weren't able to make the roundtable discussions. Some of them are familiar to the channel, some are not. And they all did a great job. So starting next episode, we'll get into that. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.
And
Take
it's
care.
true that we cannot see that far behind. If we looked all the way in the past, we'd go blind. In the night, from the stars as they've all lived their lives, and the light that they gave as they burned and then died.